Once a father met me at school and said, "Ma'am, my teenage son listened to his teachers. He listened to his cricket coach. He even listens to his friends. But the moment I ask him to do something at home, he argues, ignores me, or simply walks away." Then he looked at me and asked, "Why does not my teenager listen to me anymore?" A few weeks later, another mother shared a very similar concern. She said, "Every conversation with my daughter turns into an argument. I don't understand what happened. She was not like this before." Have you ever felt the same? Have you ever wondered, why does my child listen to everyone else but not to me? If you have, you are certainly not alone. Stay with me till the end, because today we are going to understand why this happens, and more importantly, how small changes in the way we communicate can make a big difference in our relationship with our teenagers. Because sometimes changing the way we communicate can change the entire relationship. Let us begin with a simple question. Are teenagers really not listening? Or is something else happening that we as parents often misunderstand? Many parents tell me, "My child has become stubborn. Nothing I say seems to make any difference. It is like talking to a wall." But before we come to that conclusion, I would like you to think about something. What if your teenager is listening but is not hearing your message in the way you intended? That one thought can completely change the way we look at our children. The goal of communication is not simply to make our children obey. The goal is to build understanding, because understanding builds trust, and trust makes guidance easier to accept. Think about what usually happens in many homes. Your teenager comes home after a long day at school. They put down their bag. Before they have had a chance to relax, you ask, "Did you finish your homework? How was your test? Why are you holding your phone again?" These are perfectly reasonable questions. As parents, we ask them because we care. But imagine how your teenager may hear them. Instead of hearing, "I'm interested in you," they may hear, "The first thing my parents notice is what I have not done." Neither side is trying to hurt the other, yet both end up feeling misunderstood. Parents feel ignored, teenagers feel criticized, and before anyone realizes it, a simple conversation turns into an argument. Have you noticed that? Sometimes the argument is not really about homework or the phone or even coming home late. It is about how both people are feeling in that moment. So why does this happen? To answer that, let us spend a minute understanding what is happening inside a teenager's mind. Not to learn psychology, but to better understand our children. Think about a time when you were upset. Perhaps someone criticized you after a tiring day at work. Were you able to think calmly at that moment? Probably not. Most of us find it difficult. Teenagers experience this much more intensely because the emotional part of their brain matures earlier than the part that helps them pause, think carefully, and control their reactions. So when they feel criticized, embarrassed, or misunderstood. They often react before they have had time to think. That is why a simple question can sometimes lead to an unexpectedly emotional response. That is why a simple question like "Have you finished your homework?" can sometimes receive an unexpected response like "Why do you always keep asking me?" It is not because your teenager woke up that morning wanting to argue. In many cases, they are reacting to how they feel in that moment. Understanding this does not mean we excuse disrespect. It simply helps us respond more wisely. When we understand what is happening inside a teenager's brain, we stop asking, "Why is my child behaving like this?" and begin asking, "What does my child need from me right now?" That one change in perspective can completely transform the relationship. But there is another important reason teenagers don't always seem to listen. As children grow into adolescence, they begin wanting something they did not ask for before. They want to be trusted. They want to make some decisions for themselves. They want parents to believe they are growing up. Have you noticed your teenagers saying things like, "I know, I will do it later. Please stop reminding me"? As parents, we often hear these words and think, "My child has become rude." Sometimes that may be true, but many times these words are not meant to hurt us. They are the teenager's way of saying, "Please believe that I'm growing up." This is a normal part of adolescence. Psychologists describe this as the search for identity. Teenagers begin asking themselves, "Who am I? What kind of a person do I want to become? Can I make my own decisions? Do my parents trust me?" This does not mean they no longer need their parents. In fact, they need us just as much as they did before. The difference is they need us differently. When they were 5 years old, they need us to hold their hand. As teenagers, they need us to walk beside them, not too far ahead and not too far behind, just beside them. I often compare parenting a teenager to teaching a child to ride a bicycle. In the beginning, we hold the bicycle tightly. We guide every movement. But little by little, we loosen our grip. Eventually, we let go. Not because we don't care, but because that is how children learn balance. Parenting teenagers is very similar. Our role slowly changes from controlling every step to guiding them while allowing them to grow. And that is not always easy. Because as parents, letting go even a little can feel frightening. We worry. What if they make mistakes? What if they choose the wrong friends? What if they don't listen? These are genuine concerns. Every caring parent has them. But here is something I have learned after working with teenagers and parents for many years. Children learn responsibility not only because parents give instructions, but because parents gradually give them opportunities to make responsible choices. That does not mean there should be no rules. Teenagers still need boundaries. In fact, clear and consistent boundaries help them feel secure. But there is a difference between controlling a teenager and guiding a teenager. Control says, because I said so. Guidance says, let me help you understand why this matters. One creates resistance, the other builds responsibility. Now let me ask you another question. When was the last time you had a conversation with your teenager that was not about studies or marks or homework or screen time or responsibilities? Just a conversation about their day, their friends, something funny that happened at school, a movie they enjoyed, a sport they love. Many parents pause for a moment at this point, not because they don't love their children, but because life becomes busy. And slowly, most conversations become reminders. Did you study? Finish your homework? Keep your room clean? Put your phone away? None of these are wrong. They are part of parenting. But imagine if almost every conversation someone had with you was about correcting you. How would you feel? Probably defensive. Teenagers feel the same. That is why I often tell parents something very simple. Connection comes before correction. Children may obey because of fear, but they usually grow because of connection. When children feel connected, they are far more willing to accept guidance. Because advice is easier to receive from someone who first makes us feel understood. Let me give you a simple example. A parent says, "Why are you always on your phone?" The parent means, "I'm worried that you are spending too much time online." But the teenager hears, "You don't trust me." Another parent says, "Why have not you started studying?" The parent means, "I want you to do well." The teenager hears, "I'm never good enough." Can you see what is happening? The problem is not always what we say. It is often how our teenager hears it. The problem is how the message is received. And that is why the words we choose matter. Sometimes changing just one sentence changes the whole conversation. Instead of saying, "Go and study now," try saying, "What is your plan for finishing today's work?" Instead of, "Put your phone away immediately," try, "Let us work together to decide when it is time to put our phones away." One gives an order, the other invites responsibility. Teenagers are much more likely to cooperate when they feel they have a voice. When children are involved in finding a solution, they are much more likely to take responsibility for it. So, what can parents do differently? Over the years, I have noticed that three simple changes make the biggest difference in communication, between parents and teenagers. They sound simple, but when practiced consistently, they can transform a relationship. First, listen before you lecture. Many parents listen with the intention of replying. Instead, try listening with the intention of understanding. Sometimes your teenager does not need an immediate solution. They simply need someone who is willing to listen without interrupting. Imagine your daughter comes home and says, I had a terrible day at school. Our natural response is, what happened? Did you do something? Don't worry. Next time you should, etc. etc. Within seconds, we started giving advice. Instead, pause, look at your child, and simply say, oh, that sounds difficult. Tell me more. Those three words, tell me more, can keep a conversation open. When teenagers feel heard, they become much more willing to hear us. Second, choose the right moment. Have you noticed that many arguments happen at the wrong time? Your teenagers has just returned from school. They are tired. They are hungry. Their mind is still thinking about something that happened to his friend. And that is exactly when we begin asking, did you complete your assignment? Why are your marks coming down? How long are you going to use the phone? The topic may be important, but the time is not. Sometimes waiting until everyone is calm changes the entire conversation. There is a saying in counseling that I have found to be very true. A calm brain listens far better than an emotional brain. If your teenager is upset, wait. If you are upset, wait. Not because the issue is not important, but because the relationship is more important than winning the moment. Third, replace comments with conversations. As parents, we often speak in instructions. Go and study. Keep your phone away. Clean your room. Do it now. Sometimes instructions are necessary. But if every conversation sounds like an instruction, teenagers begin to switch off. Instead, invite them into the conversation. For example, instead of saying go and study now, try asking, what is your plan for finishing today's work? Instead of keep your phone away, try saying, let us think together about a screen time routine that works for our family. Notice the difference. You are still guiding. You are still setting expectations. But you are also giving your teenager a chance to think and participate. When teenagers feel they have a voice, they are much more likely to take responsibility. There is something else I have learnt over the years. When a teenager makes a mistake, it is very easy to label the child. You are lazy, you are irresponsible, you never listen. But labels rarely change behavior. In fact, They often make teenagers feel that no matter what they do, they have already been judged. Instead, talk about the behavior. For example, I noticed your assignment is not finished yet. Is something making it difficult? One sentence closes the conversation, the other keeps the conversation alive. And as parents, our goal should always be to keep that door open. Because once communication closes, guidance becomes much more difficult. There is one more thought I would like to leave with you. As parents, it is natural to want our children to listen. But ask yourself this question the next time an argument begins. Do I want to win this argument? Or do I want to strengthen my relationship with my child? Sometimes they are not the same thing. A teenager may obey because they are afraid. But they grow because they feel understood, respected, and guided. Our influence does not come from being louder. It comes from building trust. Imagine you are teaching someone to drive a car for the very first time. Would you shout every time they made a mistake? Probably not. Because you know that shouting does not build confidence. Patient guidance does. Parenting a teenager is very similar. Teenagers are learning to drive their own lives. They will make wrong turns. They will miss signals. Sometimes they will ignore good advice. Sometimes they will learn lessons the hard way. But through all of this, they still need someone sitting beside them, calmly guiding, encouraging, and believing in them. That person is you. So if your teenager does not seem to listen today, don't immediately ask, how do I make my child? Instead ask, how can I communicate in a way that helps my child feel understood? Very often, when teenagers feel understood, they become much more willing to understand us. Remember, teenagers do not stop needing their parents during adolescence. They simply start needing them in a different way. And when parents understand this, conversations slowly become calmer, trust becomes stronger, and relationships begin to heal. I would love to hear from you. What is the biggest communication challenge you're facing with your teenager right now? Is it frequent arguments? Screen time? Not listening? Mood swings? Or something else? Share your experience in the comments. Your story might encourage another parent who is going through in the same situation. If you found this video helpful, please share it with another parent. Sometimes one conversation can make a meaningful difference in a family. In our next episode, we will discuss another question that almost every parent asking today. Why are teenagers so addicted to mobile phones? We will explore why phones have become so appealing to teenagers, and more importantly, how parents can set healthy boundaries without turning every evening into a battle. Remember, teenagers do not need perfect parents. They need parents who are willing to understand before they judge. to listen before they lecture, and to guide with patience, understanding, and consistency. Because every conversation is a chance to strengthen your relationship with your child. See you in the next episode.